And yep, I think we're live. Hey guys, this is Dan Duran, Tech Lounge, BeWire Technologies. How are you guys doing today? We're actually live. So I have on the other side Diego confirming that we're live. Diego, are we okay? Can you hear us? Can you see us? Everything is kosher from your side. So let us know. We have the opportunity, wonderful opportunity to have two people in here. Oh, hold on one sec. No. There you go. Okay, sorry about that. We had a little glitch, and I know my computer's been glitching all day. So, Andrew Somerton, our CEO, and my partner in crime. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Dan. Really, really happy to be here as always.
Absolutely. And we have Shawn Brown. Shawn Brown. I like the sound of that. Shawn Brown. It rolls out of the tongue. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Dan. Thanks for having me here.
We're so happy to have you. So Shawn Brown is basically, he's one of the founders. Do I have that correct? You're one of the founders at HRCovered?
Correct, yeah.
Perfect. So give us a little introduction of what you do. What's your normal day like? How many years you've been with the company? What does HRCovered do? What is your value proposition? All of that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure, Dan. So I've been in the HR industry for over a decade, and my current title with HRCovered here is Chief Growth Officer. So I really, look to provide a service and get the name out to prospective clients, and just make sure that every single Canadian business out there, regardless of size and regardless of industry, has something, affordable and effective from an HR perspective. So really, our main goal is just to ensure that everybody's compliant. They've got the proper tools that they need to move forward, and just kind of take off that HR hat, focus on their vision, on their purpose and what's important to them as a business.
Amazing. So we have some people joining us. Boris Hernandez says hello. We have Adrian Perez again. Hello, Adrian. How are you? Gabriela is saying hello, and then Al Hazared. He's also saying hello. He's one of our top fans on Facebook. Hey, Hazared. Woohoo! Congrats, buddy. And we're open for questions, right? So make sure they're not very technical. If they're very technical, don't worry about it. After the show, you can always private message us, me, and we'll be able to relay those questions to the experts if they're in debt. But however, we're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it super energetic. We have a little backstory on HRCovered. And the first thing is that about a year ago, is that right, Andrew? About a year ago, we hired HRCovered?
Approximately within a few months, yeah.
Yeah, so we're a small company. I mean, we have I think 25, 26 employees in our two divisions, Rhino Cybersecurity and BeWire Technologies. But we're growing very quickly. And the one thing that we don't have is an HR person in-house. So we hire HRCovered to cover us, right? And the unbelievable thing is that within 30 days, 1 month, they made us compliant. Then they created this training modules for our employees on women's and health and safety, harassment, and all of that good stuff for our company. Employee manuals, some other manuals as well. I don't recall what they were. However, in 30 days, we were compliant, and we were so happy with the service. We were stoked. So much so that we're like, hey, you know what, Shawn, why don't you just talk to us, and talk to our audience, and let them know how great your service is, and that's why we're here, right?
So awesome.
I think it's I think it's fantastic. Shawn, I'm going to just jump in real quick and say thank you and to your team, because as a small business growing, your eye is basically on your clients and growing your product and your services and making payroll and selling services and making sure the job's done. And you know what, dealing with people it's a specialty, there's so many different issues and concerns that you have to make sure that everybody is treated and respected and everything applies to everybody properly. And so having a team like you to as a resource to call or to have us help us in that manner has been wonderful, and we continue to look forward to that partnership because it is something that is so specialized. So thank you for that.
Not a problem, Andrew. Thanks so much as well for having me here. I think it's just an awesome way to get the word out and just look at how all small businesses and all businesses out there can kind of network and pull resources and find best practices. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely. We have some other people joining us. We have Jean-Paul Duville. Hey guys, and we have Alex Ramirez. Hi. We have Yonglian Kai saying hello. If you have any questions, feel free to start using the chat, and then we'll get answering those questions as soon as we can. So the first question that I have is a very, very important question, Shawn. How the heck do you do potlucks now that everybody's working from
That's the most important question, Shawn.
It's the most important question. I used to love I used to love having the company days and having potlucks. We have a foosball table, as you can see. We have paintball, we have arcades and stuff like that. We can lounge around. We're very very laid back company, and then when COVID hit, that's the first thing. No more potlucks. Everybody's working from home. How can you go around that and to keep the enthusiasm and motivation inside of the company?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been a struggle. We're a remote only company, so it's engagement is not as easy as it is when you're in the office environment, right? So potlucks, I mean, you can always take pictures of your food and send it around on Slack or Teams, or everybody comes together for lunch and sits on Zoom and fills their face and chats about it, right? But we got to be a lot more descriptive now in terms of what
it was all about filling your face. That was my main thing.
Yeah, for sure. So really just we have to look at other ways, to engage, especially in a remote environment. So us here at HRCovered, we connect, we make it a point to connect as a whole team at least once a month and just really relax and talk about all the successes and victories, because there's a lot of really cool stories that happen behind the scenes. So whether somebody did something incredible on service, the operations side might not know about that, right? So it's just a great way to celebrate success. And then we always like to put a little flair on it. We play some online games and stuff like that. Nice. So we've got like Jackbox TV, and we play like Fibbage and Lie Swatter and stuff, just to break up the monotony. Because again, we all need to decompress at times, and it's great to do it with your colleagues and just just sit down and talk on a personal level sometimes.
I mean, what? I think that's a fantastic point, because we're our team, because we have two divisions basically. So we have our Rhino Cybersecurity and BWire Technologies, and two very different mindsets of people as well, right? So we have the developers, we have marketers, we have all kinds of different individuals who work with us, and being abroad. And what I mean by abroad, I mean, you could be neighbors and beside each other, but you're working from home. You don't have that same interaction. So to be able to unite, like we have meetings every single day, and we talk about business and projects, and we keep everybody in the loop to keep that unity happening for the productivity of the business. But the human component, the interaction, the fun, the potlucks, as you guys are talking about, is equally and critically important as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's not just about the fun stuff, but for example, talking to your employees one-on-one, having those, Zoom conversations nowadays, instead of being in the office, and just, not worrying about work. And when I say not worrying about work, it's like, I don't want like status of the project. I don't want to know what's going on in your world. I just want to reach out to see how you're doing, because that's one of the things that has hit us so much over these 2 years, is mental health. So that brings me to the other question that I have, is how does mental health come into the picture with this like working from home environment now that pretty much everybody has?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that, obviously there's been a lot of struggles and a lot of stories out there in terms of, kind of the impacts that the pandemic's had on mental health and stress, because there's people out there too that because work is more accessible, they're doing way more work too, and they're kind of losing that balance and that escape. So I think, a big thing that you can encourage as a company is just to have like a shutdown time specifically, you know what I mean? And just make sure that nobody's doing too much work. So just really monitoring kind of like how often they're logging into systems or when they're logging into systems. I think, you can have a personal conversation with them as well. And I mean, it's good if people want to go out there and do a little bit extra, right? It's great, it's productive, but burnout is something that absolutely affects everybody, no matter how much you think it doesn't.
Yes.
It's something that if you just continue going down and working hard, you're going to hit a wall at some point.
For sure. Shawn, as a HR professional, because I know how you guys help us and we reach out and you answer a lot of questions for us. Is there like a recommendation from you guys to say, you know what, you should be talking to your employees on a one-on-one once a month right now, or once every quarter, or like, how does that look? Because it's very easy to have a one-on-one conversation when you're walking down the hall and you ask them, how was the weekend? I know you, how's your dog? Because I know she had a hip, a problem with her hip, or, these are all personal conversations that builds that. But to your point of this conversation, is there a recommended timelines that you should be doing that with your staff right now, because everybody's working typically remotely?
Personally, it really depends on the employee sets and
Right.
kind of the culture that's there. Personally, within HRCovered, we make it a mission to connect with our team individually, one-on-one, once a week, and it's not always about business. Again, it's connecting at a personal level, which I think is important as an employer, because if you can't make that personal connection, then it's tough for the employee to invest themselves in your company as well, right? So
Right.
just taking the time, even though it might not seem productive from a business standpoint, it is the most important thing you can possibly do from a culture standpoint.
Right.
Great. Amazing. So we have a few people asking questions here. So let me just go back to our chat. We have one from Gladstone. Gladstone says, how big should a company be before considering getting HR support, such as yourselves, HRCovered?
That's a great question. And the short answer here is that it doesn't matter. You have one employee, you have 100 employees, 1,000 employees, there's some level of HR that's applicable to your business, right? So as soon as you've got somebody on payroll, you have to follow employment standards. There are rights around, human rights and accessibility and, occupational health and safety. So as soon as you bring people on, that's when HR applies.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, right? So for example, compliance, it doesn't matter if you have 5 people working for you or 2 people, you have to comply to certain standards. Accessibility is huge, and you know that the government of Ontario is actually putting more restrictions, or not more restrictions, but more laws around accessibility. And some people don't know that, right? So you can be a very small company, and you don't have a full-time HR person. They don't know the ropes, and they don't have the knowledge to be able to do the compliance paperwork, documentation. So to answer your question, basically, it's just any company, right? And that's what people don't know, correct?
And I think to that point too, and I just want to, because I think this is really important as a small business owner, cost. You're always looking at expenditures, and if you hired a full-time professional HR person, obviously it's a substantial investment for your company. So to Gladstone's question, you have to ask yourself, when should I hire somebody on a full-time basis? And you may never have to with an organization like yours, Shawn, because it is so cost effective. Like, I was remarkably surprised, and I don't know if you want to talk about that or not. That's completely off topic, because I know every client's different but I know for ours, the company we have and our partnership with you guys was so remarkably cost effective. It just made complete sense. I don't care if I had 5 people or 25 people. It just was a smart investment and a very minimal investment for what we got in return. So if anybody out there is thinking about, looking for a professional, take it from us as far as a cost-effective solution. these guys are incredible. And I'm not
Yep.
trying to sell your service, Shawn. I'm being honest. The reality of it is you guys
100%.
did, and it's so inexpensive.
Yeah.
That again, it was incredible.
Yeah. So
Very surprising, actually.
yeah. So you can get covered by HRCovered. Did I get,
Exactly.
did I get it right?
That's it.
There
That's
you
it.
go.
Yeah.
New slogan.
Yeah.
So tell us
sure.
about your service. What makes you unique and special, Shawn?
What makes us unique and special is we really want to do the heavy lifting, because we understand, again, I'll revert back to talking about this, this business owner with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 employees. If you're the business owner and you've got 3 employees, you are 25% of the workforce. So there's no way that you're doing HR, operations, finance, marketing, sales, all at the same time. So that's really what we found, and that's why we built a service like this, is to just make sure that we could take HR off your plate. Take off that HR hat, focus on what's important to you as a business, and we actually do the work for you. So there's a lot of great services out there, and I can give you all the tools and templates in the world, of course, right? But if you don't have the time to actually go through, understand them, implement them, there's really no point in even having it in the first place. So really the main differentiator between us and everybody else out there in the marketplace is that we bring an affordable solution. It's a service-based solution. It's not a software that you have to learn and roll out and train your employees. It's we take on that HR hat for you, get you compliant, make sure the training's done, and help and support you every step of the way.
And that's why we named the show Don't Get Google to be your HR expert.
That's right.
Because that's what everybody does. There is a conflict in the company, something is going on. Oh, let me Google it. How to resolve this conflict, blah, blah, blah. And then try to get answers like that when you have a company backing you up. And I have a question here from Kevin Nathaniel, and I think it's a really good question. It's a little long-winded, but I'll ask it anyway. So I am really great friends with one of my colleagues, but a few times they have said things that I do not always agree with. Should I speak to HR for that, or do I go directly to my boss? I don't want to hurt my relationship that I have with my team and this colleague of mine. So what do we do in that case?
Well, I think it depends on the comfort level that the employee has with their colleague, right? And just, can they resolve that themselves? If they don't feel that having that conversation with the employee is a productive way to solve the issue or address the concerns, then obviously you want to go to, there's processes in place, obviously, when it comes to reporting, violence or harassment or those types of things. So really every company should have a policy that outlines those reporting procedures. Generally, it's the direct supervisor, or of course, HR is always the person that you want to talk to. If you're not comfortable talking to your direct supervisor about that, but there's definite steps and processes that are in place to help mitigate those issues, solve those problems, and that's why legislation exists, because if you're not feeling comfortable in the work environment, it's not a good place to be, right?
So if you don't have a policy, get one now. Call HRCovered, get a policy. So,
Shawn, to that point, Shawn, if in regards to that, so would your service provide that? Like, so for example, let's say those 2 individuals, you didn't have an HR, you're our HR specialist, and someone had that conflict. Would you be on that Skype call with them or whatever to help mitigate that? Would your team?
Great question, Andrew. What we really focus more on is helping the employer with the proper steps, because as the employer, you're ultimately responsible to make sure that you're following those rules, right? So once it comes to your attention, that's when you would connect with your HR expert and talk about, okay, so what sort of follow-up do I need to do with the employees? Again, if you've got specific questions that come out of those meetings, or you've never had a meeting like that before, they can walk you through best practices of the meeting, what to say, what not to say, talk about potential pitfalls that have happened in the past in meetings that are similar. So again, it's we want to empower you as the employer to take that by the horns and really, make sure, because if you can resolve the issue, then again, that has a huge impact in terms of how your employees perceive
Yeah.
you and your commitment
Absolutely.
to them.
But
So
you would be the
basically,
resource.
so basically, what you do is, if an employer, or sorry, the employee has a problem, just address it. Go to your immediate supervisor, go to your boss, talk to him, and then myself, can I call you, right? Can I call HR covered, because you guys have a relationship with us, or we have a contract where you cover the questions that I have as an employer, not the employee directly with you. Okay, so that's kind of like the chain of events that should occur within the company. Very good. I have another question from Sean Paul Duville. So hello, Sean Paul. I hope you're doing fantastic. He says, if I'm starting my own small business, what should my top priorities be to get going from an HR standpoint? Where should I even start?
That's a great question. I think there's startups out there that are always asking that question. There's also established companies out there that are asking that question too, right? It depends where HR falls on your priority list. But if you're committed to getting HR in place, obviously you want to start with understanding what your requirements are, and that in and of itself is not an easy task, because there's four to six different pieces of legislation that you have to be versed in. But basically just understanding what you need to do as an employer. What are the core pieces of documentation that you need in place to protect your business? What are the core pieces of training that need to be done to ensure that you're compliant? And what is your HR vision, right? And that's the thing. What do you want to do after you've got all this great stuff in place, and you're compliant, you're following all the rules? What's next? How do you engage your employees? How do you create that culture? How do you recruit good people? You know what I mean? So like those are the things that will fall into the business's priority list once they've got an established HR compliance
Absolutely.
process.
And that's a big one, Sean. We have Rhino Cybersecurity, right? So that's one of our divisions. And one of the main problems is that we don't have top talent. It's really hard to come by top talent in cybersecurity. What are some of the creative ways that companies nowadays are using to be able to, to get top talent for their industries?
Yeah, great question. So again, I know in the tech space, it's a super competitive market. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of companies looking for really great people in the tech industry, right? So there's things that attract employees, and again, sometimes you have to think outside of the box as an employer in terms of the standard stuff. So like, yeah, we give you benefits, and yeah, you get X vacation, and sometimes that's not good enough, right? And what I think really has the biggest impact is attracting them to your culture, right? Not necessarily attracting them to the job, but attracting them to the culture. So really being upfront in terms of who you are, how you operate, be transparent with them about, everything, because they're going to make the decision in terms of whether or not that culture fits with them. And I think, anybody wants to fit in, right? In terms of a culture, right? You don't want to have different beliefs or different vision or different morals than the company you're working for. It's just not going to be effective, right?
Yeah, and I think that Andrew, that's one of the things that we're doing in the company, right? Like, it's more than culture; it's a community. That's what we're building, where everybody cares about each other. You can, as a CEO, you can comment about that.
I think, Sean, and thanks, Dan, for that. I couldn't agree more. I think there's never been a better time for more transparency with your team, inclusion. It's to feel like you're involved and you're a part of the process and you're aware of what's going on at all times. Because again, we all feel like we're out on an island. We're by ourselves. As soon as that computer goes off, we're in our own environment. But to have that inclusion, to understand what's happening with the sales process, what's happening with the production, what's happening with projects, the wins you've had, small wins you've had with clients, issues that maybe you've encountered, and you share them and you collaborate as a team. I think that's so important. Like I couldn't be more proud, and I'm not saying that because it's my team. I couldn't be more proud of our team.
I know.
Our culture is incredible, and the love for each other and the love for what we do speaks volumes with our interaction as a team. But I think it's because of the camaraderie we have, the mutual respect. It doesn't matter if from what culture, it doesn't matter anything. We're all one, and we're a united team that has unity. And I think that speaks volume. And I think leaders need to share that clarity with their teams to continue that culture.
Big shout out to Gladstone, if you're out there, and Julian, Kevin. You guys are rock, right? So you guys, yeah. So and that's key. And as an operations guy, so I manage the operations of the company, and I can sit and relax and feel very confident that, for example, 9 p.m., 10 p.m., there's a problem. One of our clients, there's a fire that we need to, put out. I just put the message out there, and my people can back me up. They can be there when they're needed. It doesn't mean that I make them work every Saturday and Sunday, because that should not be the case, or during the weeknights, for example, because we're in an office kind of setting 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. I know other industries is different, but I know that I can count on them, and that's the key, right?
You know what, Ted, and maybe Shawn, I'll ask you this question. I know we have a lot of other questions, but has there ever been a greater time where you've had the work-life interaction? Like before, when you would work at home and you would drive to the office, you could separate your life and your business, very, very clear lines. And there's always transition. You always brought your business life or back and forth. I mean, but now you're literally living in your same environment. They're actually intergrained like this. Has there been, as an HR professional, have you noticed that greatly? And is there solutions? Is there issues that come up from that? Like, I guess I'm not sure if I'm 100% clear on my question, but it is clear in my head. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think routine is something that's been shaken up greatly, obviously, with the work from home, and just helping employees set a routine of shutting down or closing the door, or something that gives you that disconnect, because you don't necessarily have that commute anymore. You don't have that decompression time to shut off. So it's just, I think if an employee is struggling with that, you definitely want to help them establish a routine, whether it be, put your lid down on your notebook, at 5 o'clock, just put it down. Don't even look at it. You know what I mean? Or
I can't do that.
I know. Everybody struggles.
Online. I can be at 2 in the morning. I'm watching TV and stuff like that, and I'm focused on my phone and stuff like that. I can't turn it off. I know, but it is the balance, right? And that's the key. You have to have some sort of balance within the workplace.
For sure. I go for walks. That's so I substitute the commute with leaving my house. Right. You know what I mean?
Great idea.
So sometimes you just got to get out, and last night it just started pouring down rain on me, and I didn't care, because it was a great time. It was
nice.
All right. So do you guys own your own technology? I know Randy was telling me that you guys use a technology, or you own your own technology where you do your assessment. Sorry, this is a little off topic. I just want to know kind of the nuts and bolts of your process, how it starts, and where you can get employers to the next level. For example, do you have your own technology? What kind of technologies do you use?
So we're really a service-based organization. So technology is minimal. Like I said, a lot of the businesses that we work with, you've got your own technologies in place, and you're training all your people on those systems. Trying to train them on another HR system, like you got to click this button, you got to sign off here, and you got to do this. It just adds a lot more complexity to a small business environment. So really what we do, and just kind of the process, is we've established an amazing process to get you compliant and make sure that we can roll that out effectively. So basically, if you've got stuff in place from a documentation perspective, we'll go through it and audit it. And, this is all person service based, right? So
Right.
so we're not running it through an AI component that says, you're missing this word, this word. This is like a real person going through your stuff, making sure that it's up to date, and then helping you fill the gaps and advising you on how to, get that rolled out to your staff.
Shawn, on that point, I'm going to bring it up because I brought it up at the beginning of this talk. And as a business owner, I just think it's important, maybe because you talk service based, and we know how much money it costs for an individual to take all this and do all this and execute this. I mean, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but for the viewers to just maybe tap into like what would be like a starting package for you guys or something, like as far as dollars and cents, if you don't mind talking about that. The only reason is because I know what we pay to have your service, and it's so cost effective, like I said, and I don't want to reiterate that enough, but I think it is important because you are service based, and with service based businesses, it's time, and time typically is expensive. So what does that look like, if you don't mind sharing, maybe just a very surface level? Obviously, guys, as an individual business, you need to call them and figure that out, but maybe on a surface level, what are your thoughts? Do you want to talk about that maybe quickly?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think that's one of the best parts of what we do is we really strive to make it affordable and attainable, because we want to help every business be compliant. So really, if you're within the 1 to 20 range, we're breaking down to like $125 a month, billed annually. So a $1,500 investment is going to get you the necessary documentation and training provided to your staff, and an expert at your back every step of the way. So we feel we've come up with just a fantastic business model where
Nice.
it's not outside of the range, right? Because HR is one of those priorities. It's generally sitting like 4 or 5 until something happens, and then you have to be reactive, and then you have to spend a lot of money on talking to a consultant or a lawyer for one situation, just because you need an answer right away, right?
Yeah.
And that's the key, is that we just want you to have the comfort and confidence that you can move forward and not have to worry or stress about these types of things as they pop up throughout the year.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just think and thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important, because I said, as any business owner out there is looking at this, to hire somebody full-time, part-time, it's very costly, and you guys are, again, not only experts, but again, very affordable. So
Shawn,
anyways,
let me bring one of those elephants in the room into the picture. Uh-oh.
All right, Dan. I'm
All
ready.
right, so
how about one of the
steer,
rhinos?
I want to stir up a little bit of controversy. No, not really controversy, but just talk about it. How do you monitor job performance for employees when people are working from home? How do you guys what kind of recommendations do you have?
For sure. So I mean, it's a struggle for a lot of people, and it depends on the level of trust, I think, that you have with your employees. So they're, again, if you're dealing with thousands of employees, you can't necessarily see what all of them are doing at one point in time, right? So of course, there's software monitoring and all of that, but that kicks up issues of privacy concerns from the employees and things like that too, right? I think really the best way in a small business to monitor that performance is just to be, again, transparent with goals and what's expected. What does success look like? What is a job well done, right? And having a clear definition of that, and giving them the autonomy to just go out there and do it. And either they did it or not. I think that's a great indicator of success. But just setting sort of milestones in between, using scorecards as well, I think is a good way. Just looking at key KPIs that need to be met, and just kind of benchmarking them against previous weeks, and looking at any sort of discrepancies or inefficiencies.
Absolutely. So, like for all of you micromanagers out there, you need to breathe and let go. Your employee will do wonders if you're, like not so tight-fisted and micromanaging, but
100%.
give incentives as and do these things that Shawn is recommending as well. So which brings me to another point, right? So when you're working from home and you're not supervised, sometimes you're using your own devices. So the like the BOYD, right? So bring your own device kind of policies come into effect or in place. But how, and that's it's a little bit controversial because it's my own computer. I can do whatever I want with my computer. However, there is a policy that says that I cannot go to this website or I cannot do this or download software. How do you manage that, man? That's just like kind of crazy for all of those companies that they need to have a BOYD policy in place.
Yeah. So again, it depends on the level of trust, but like a BYOD policy itself should outline the key things that are acceptable and not acceptable. And again, I know a lot of companies, they'll use like a VPN, to kind of monitor and sort of separate the personal use versus the company use. So obviously there's great technologies out there that can help sort of set those lines, but just being upfront again in a policy that, you can live with as an employer, and that your employee feels like they don't have any control, or don't have the ability to make their own decisions on their own devices. I think can really make that nice and clear. But the last thing you want to do is react. Again, I'll talk about reaction, because that's where a lot of small businesses find themselves, that they don't have a policy like this, and then all of a sudden they ask their employee to do something, and then the employee comes back, well, it's my device, I can do whatever I want, because it was never outlined in the first place. And I think that, again, I'll touch back, that's the importance of having good HR process and documentation in place.
If you have nothing, you're screwed, buddy. Like, seriously.
Yeah, it's there, it's in writing. We went through it, we understand, we came to a common ground, and that's where we can now start coaching around that.
For sure.
Nice. So I have a question from Christopher Michael Murray. Thank you for joining us, and it goes along with this. It says, how does something like occupational H&S apply to those now working from home or in a remote run company? Ooh, they're putting it out there. They're putting you to the test, Shawn. Tell me, how does that? how can that be, helped?
Well, thank you, Christopher. I'll do my best to answer that. So, we're kind of in flux right now as well from a legislative standpoint. So, what's happened is there haven't been any major decisions that have kind of tied in with the work from home environment yet. And yet is the key term, because as a lot more of us are transitioning to remote work environments, that might have an impact in terms of what occupational health and safety looks like. But right now, it's still the same, right? So it doesn't matter if I'm in the office or at home, bullying and harassment can still happen, right? So through, I post a picture on Slack that offends somebody, it's the same as telling a joke that offends somebody in the office, right? So these are
worse, because sometimes when you send stuff through digital,
it's there forever.
They're there forever, right? So that's crazy, and it's funny how the government can't cope either, right? Like they're struggling with all of this, COVID, working from home stuff. So there's no legislation yet, but I guess there will be in the future as we progress. So do you think that we're going to get out of this era? Like, do you think people are going to come back to work, especially people that are in offices?
Great question. And only time will tell, Dan. I'm not sure if you've been following kind of what's been going on, but a lot of people are being asked to come back into the office, and they're resigning because there's mass resignations. This is a topic obviously that we're following. So if you're going to be an employer and just have a hard line on you have to come back to the office,
right?
I'd be careful with that, because you might find that half of your staff don't want to come back. And if that's your hard line on that, you're going to have to be doing a lot of recruiting.
You can't be too pushy, right? Like, look at this. I'm working myself here in the office, and if I ask any of our employees or any of, do you want to come back to work? Man, no, I'm actually good here. You know
what? It's funny, Dan, because I was going to bring this up just before this topic, and I was going to say, look at that beautiful office behind you that's empty, other than you being in it. And we've actually had those conversations, Shawn, with our team, and we've 100%, because we've been very fortunate. Our productivity has remained the same, if not better. But I love the interaction, to Dan's point earlier, play foosball at lunch, or, take a break and go have a video game for 20 minutes to refresh, or, go out for lunch together, whatever that looks like. But we've asked that question to our team. Again, back to that transparency, and an HR concern is we don't want to force it on anybody, but, we want to recommend that we would love to see you at the office 1 day or 2 days a week for the camaraderie, the interaction. But right now, because everything's still, as to your point, unclear, we don't want to dictate, or we never would dictate anyways, in our position. But I think it is a slippery slope. There's no question. And then you talk about, the footprint of those offices. What do they look like as a corporation? Do we downsize because of this? Do we not? Because a lot of people don't own their buildings, they lease them. So do we need to, all these questions are a huge concern. So I'm curious how it's all going to unroll over time. So your business is even that much more important in the next few years, because there's so much uncertainty.
And it's crazy, because for 1 year this office was collecting dust. Nobody was working from the office, and we pay rent, and it's not cheap. Rent is not cheap, man. So so those things are the things that we need to kind of tackle as we go, I guess, huh?
For sure. But again, there's some merit in having an office too. So
absolutely,
because again, when you have the ability to get everybody back in the office, even if it's just like you said, Andrew, for a day or two, get everybody in, or if they're not comfortable coming in yet, space it out and limit, the amount of people that can come in. But people want to go to an office still too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I would anticipate that there's probably going to be a lot more temporary rental office space in the future, where those that chose to go fully remote still have an environment that they can connect and network as a team in person.
Great. Boris says, workplace diversity. How important is inclusion, communication, and clarity? I guess those are topics that are continually evolving, right? Diversity, accessibility, inclusion, things like that. Can you talk about the future of those type of diversity in the workplace?
For sure. So I think one of the biggest things, and the reason why this is such a big topic, obviously is we've been striving to get to this point. There's been a lot of great legislation that's come in over the past 10 years where, we're not harassing each other, and we're understanding, who they are culturally, and there's been a lot of push on human rights. But as we move forward, it's more than that. Like, diversity and inclusion is making that environment that works for everybody, where everybody's accepted, regardless of what their beliefs are. Again, you'll have people that should fit into the culture, like the company culture specifically, but the best thing you can do as an employer is have a diverse culture. And you're going to find that as well right now with the pandemic, it's opened up a lot of opportunities to bring in remote workers. So you don't necessarily have to be in the same city or the same province or the same country, right? And a lot of employers are bringing on really, really highly skilled staff that, are not within the country or overseas or whatever the case may be, right? So just getting that in place in the forefront, and just again, you have to be repetitive with this stuff too, because again, if you can't just say once, like, hey, diversity and inclusion is important to us,
right?
We're all going to be create a nice happy, diverse, and inclusive environment. Go.
You got to live the culture.
Exactly. So it's something that if that's important to you as an employer, which I hope it is, that's something that you want to be looking at to reiterate and keep sending that message, and keep telling stories about what a situation that's fostered an inclusive or a diverse environment in your workplace.
I think that's critical when bringing on new members too. I mean, I know when we bring on any new members to our team, the skill set is probably secondary to the culture scenario to make sure that it's a mutual win-win benefit for everybody. And where I say mutual, I mean everybody in the team. So if a new person comes on and they have an incredible skill set, but they have a real poor attitude or what have you, it's just going to upset your entire company culture, right? So I think transparency, inclusion, communication from the very first day someone steps into your office, or remotely, as you said, or from another culture, another country potentially. I think it's so critically important that you manage that and you live that culture each and every day, because and it's clear. But talk to that. I know to hit the person's question, communication. It's communication, and then execution, and then living that culture each and every day is equally as important as someone's skill set.
Yes, absolutely. And back in the days, I mean, it's all about embracing change, right? So back in the days, I remember, like my parents and people would work at the same company for 20 years and just, punch in, punch out, and that was life back then. But now everything is so dynamic, right? So you can work at a company for 2 years and then move to another company, and that's 100% acceptable, right? So what are the things that you want to keep people in the company, and what are the intrinsic things? And I'm not talking just about a paycheck or raise or bonus. What are the intrinsic things that you can help them out with to maintain your top talent inside of the company?
For sure, I think setting path, because your top talent will come in to fulfill a specific job role, right? And looking at what is their path, understanding what they really want to do. If they want to do this job forever, that's great, and give them every tool necessary to be the best in their field at that job, right? But a lot of employees, they'll come on looking for a path, right? And talking to them, actually proactively talking to them about what do you want to do, and where do you see yourself, what's your ideal career progression look like, is super important. You have to have that conversation even in recruitment. Like before you even bring somebody on, you have to know where they want to be, because if you can provide them that path and give them the resources necessary to get there, then they're going to be a perfect fit.
Yeah, and this is where training becomes huge, right? So continuous training and development, right? Career development, that would be part of that path, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And just sorry, go ahead, Dan, if you had a question.
Yeah. Well, I have. Sorry, if you, I don't want to. I don't want to stop you if you want to say something else. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to say, looking at sort of how you progress, and looking at like a training needs analysis. There's a lot of corporate university structures, or a lot of companies are starting to build their own corporate universities to help employees get to that path and to invest in their employees. And that's something that is super important. It seems like a big upfront investment for an employer, but ongoing training and development is probably the most important thing, because you're going to create that great culture, right? A learning culture, a growing culture. B, you're going to retain your great staff and engage them. And C, you're going to be able to create just the next level of knowledge and skill to bring in people to replace those people as well, right? So
yes, and I think that's one of the things that Christopher Michael Murray is saying on the chat as well, and you're answering that exact question. So as an HR company, what are some of the activities you're currently doing to keep your team engaged and current and culture fun and exciting? So it is touching on that realm of we want to keep you on board, we make it fun and exciting. What are some of the things that you can also do as HR?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the sets of employees. So some people would like, a training session. Some people would like to do a game on Fridays. Some people would like the afternoons off, right? So it's really finding that balance and what works for your set of employees, depending on what motivates them. And if you don't know, you should be finding out. You know what I mean? Because you can come up with like, hey, we're doing summer hours, but if people don't want to leave early on a Friday, or work an extended Monday to Thursday to get Friday off, that's demotivating.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
Absolutely. That comes back to the communication, right, with your team, and how things have changed so dramatically, and how it's so important to keep that communication up. So yeah, no, it's a great point.
Shawn Brown, we're kind of running out of time. It's already 12:49, so we're a few minutes already into our cutoff. But that's okay. It's been a great, not just a great conversation here, but a great experience with you guys. And
Absolutely.
we definitely wish HR covered the best in their consultancy. And also, if you have any questions that that we forgot to or we didn't cover because they're a little, I saw a few of them that were actually in the chats that were a little too much in depth. Feel free to reach out to me or reach out to Shawn Brown on LinkedIn, and you can get your answers very quickly. Shawn Brown, how do people contact you?
Yeah, for sure. You can just shoot me a quick email. It's Shawn@HRCovered.com. Or as well, you can book a call on our website, HRCovered.com.
Great.
Beautiful.
It was great having you, Shawn. And next week we have Adam Stevens. He's the Director of Growth Marketing from Uvaro, which is a small startup here in the Waterloo region. They focus on tech sales training, and they're basically turning education on its head.
Wow.
So join us next Friday, 12 o'clock. Andrew, you want to say a few words before we leave?
I just, you know what? Thanks so much, Shawn. It was really informative. You guys do a fantastic job for us. I highly recommend your service to any company out there. I think you guys do a great job. And today's conversation, I loved it because it was just banter back and forth about real life stories. So thank you for being informative. And Dan, as always, you're a great host, and I look forward to next Friday.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Shawn. Shakes. Thank you, HR Covered, and I'll see you next Friday, 12 o'clock live.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.